Don't you know how live we are? I don't have a theme song. I don't have theme music. I don't have really much of anything, really. So
what
we
would be
are
the
live.
instrument that would bring you in?
What kind of instrument?
Yeah, what would it be? I'm asking you.
A didgeridoo.
Okay.
Just because I'm a difficult bitch, it would have to be a didgeridoo, some indigenous ass fucking rabbit proof fence. Like that's what we would have to do. We would have to be like you come in on that shit, and then like the beat drop trap,
and then like a little Ouija comes in.
Yeah. You know this, man. So welcome to another episode. This is episode 11 of the full set. I am sometimes a host and sometimes not. I'm DiDi Delgado, and I am here with my esteemed colleagues. I love saying that each and every time I do this show. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues. My best friend just bought me fried chicken. I don't know who I am anymore.
That's a good friend. So
that's a good mug also.
I reclaimed this mug actually from a male friend of mine who lived here and said that all of my mugs were emasculating. So I bought the mug and and that says the king, and I began to use it instead. So it is fine. It is what it is. So I'm here with some amazing members from the Unbound Bodies Collective. And I think of poets. I know y'all hate poets, but I think of poets that are like bodies, like, you know, like, come on, Sam, like, you know. And I'm really excited to have JD Stokely here and Genevieve Diaz Y Rodriguez. And I'm just so excited to have y'all here. So what's up? What's up? What's up? That chair is clutch.
Yeah, I know, right? As we're talking about royalty. Also, we don't hate poets. One of the people in our collective is a poet, and we love her.
Am I spreading propaganda about y'all early?
You are. You already started with the fake news. What the hell?
What?
Damn.
My bad. My bad. I will not tell anyone to drink Pine-Sol or expose themselves to sunlight in order to get things on and popping. So there is that. I wanted to ask y'all, with a name like Unbound Bodies Collective, what about the body is bound? And like, where did y'all even come up with that name? I know the good questions I ask. Yoda.
I love it. I guess I can take this one. So Unbound Bodies Collective, I'm a co-founding member along with Bashizo, who's another collective member. There's 5 of us. Also just shout outs real quick to Simone, to Maria, to Bashizo. The 5 of us really it's just so special to be in a group with all of us. But it was created, the name was created by Bashizo and me. I really feel like it was Bashi's idea, the name. We were talking a lot around what decolonizing desire means, decolonizing intimacy, thinking a lot about how we as queer, trans, BIPOC folks are kind of existing in this world with all of these like systems and oppressions and tensions. And so we were talking about how building community takes time. It needs to like unwind and unlayer, that there's all these, you know, things that need to be kind of like, I don't know, disintegrated in some ways before we can really show up and be in community with each other. So that's really where the name came from. It's interesting.
Are you implying that we have not been in community with our bodies? Egads.
That too, yeah. And I mean, the work that we do too is also around the body, right? Like Bashi is a performance artist. I come from a theater and performance background. A lot of us have been involved.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. A lot of us come from like healing backgrounds that are it's all about being embodied and showing up, being present, right? Trauma takes us out of the body. So what are the ways that we can be back in our bodies in a full unbound way? Gee, what do you think? 'Cause I feel like...
Y'all have me loose. Trauma takes us out of the body. I'm writing quotables as we speak.
I think we always talk about the idea of wanting to do the difficult work of facing things and like really getting down to understanding complexities and like not shying away from I think part of unbinding, and that I also get through our work, is the commitment to go deeper within ourselves and collectively. Like we don't have to do this by ourselves, and at the same time it does require a lot of individual work, and it's like, how do we do this together, and how do we go just incredibly deeper than what we thought initially healing would entail, right? Like when we first, like, I'm lucky enough to be in therapy and also in addition to the collective healing work that we're doing, and like the idea when you heal from trauma, like, oh, you're just you're healed, like everything, like, oh, we did one thing and yeah, everything's fine. And it's like and it's a wave, and it's a continuous unbind. It's like, that's why when I hear the term unbinding, it, to me, it's something that doesn't stop. You continue to unravel and unravel. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing too. I remember I ran into this white woman who I was talking to her about the work, and she was like, "Oh, is it about slavery? Is that what y'all are thinking about because of this unbound?" And I was like, "What? No, like, so that we have histories and stories beyond just the way that slavery has impacted our histories and stories." And yeah, I think about that too.
When you said, can I just tell you, like, I have all different types of people on the show, but when you said it in the tone that you said it in, I ran into a white woman. I was like, this is about to be some bullshit. Like, I already knew. I'm so sorry that you experienced that, because it's like, imagine being on the ethereal plane that you were on. Like, let me tell you about the work that we do. And then, like, she's like, is it about slavery? Like, and just to be I'm glad you uplifted that, to be reduced to, like, as if our history only went back to 1400s, like, say, like, I hate it here. How are y'all doing in the midst, y'all? I mean, I'm grateful y'all came on the show, but how are y'all doing in the midst of this global pandemic we're in? Y'all look like y'all doing, like, y'all know y'all are in a global pandemic.
First of all, everything's fine. I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. Now more than ever in all these uncertain times, everything's fine. So what do you?
Everything's fine. Are you the dog with a cup of coffee?
Can we just talk about, first of all the email? I don't even work at a nonprofit, and I somehow have gotten emails from nonprofits with a paragraph entrance of like, now more than ever in these uncertain times, I hope thee finds thee well, and all your, toilet paper and soap needs filled. And why? I don't understand it. I don't get it.
I saw a meme. It's so funny you say that. I saw a meme. I'm responsible for putting a company newsletter together. I hate it here. And I saw a meme that said, wow, this was never the best time to know that Bath and Body Works has our back. Like,
yeah, I usually am that nonprofit person being like, how long?
Oh, you are? You're like, we're here for you.
It was probably from you, Stokely.
In our houses, we're like, we're not okay. We're still working. Why are we still working? We hope you're okay right now in these uncertain, stressful, unprecedented. Are you faring well? I don't know.
Are you faring well? We're all in this together.
My I hope you're doing well sentence has gotten like, so it's true. It's gotten so long.
So it was from you. It was an email from,
like,
it was probably from me, yeah.
So
how long ago?
How long ago was it?
No, I said, gee, how are you?
Oh, I mean, I think, I don't know, like, part of me, like, I had to find new roommates, and like, I had to, like, my roommates left, I had to, like, and then part of me is like, you know what, it's fine, I'll figure it out. I don't, like, it's like, this isn't the first time shit has gone crazy. And so it's like, but then at the same time,
flee? Did they flee the country? Like, what happened?
I don't know. It's I don't know. continued white flight. I don't know. It's
Mm.
but it's weird because it feels like stuff was already like when was there a certain time? So like it's always been uncertain, but then now this is weird. Like it is weird and it is a thing, and it's like I got laid off and now I go back to work on Monday, but
I think I saw,
that
your video. I'm triggered forever. I encourage you being an artist and curating, but you did a TikTok video that I watched right before we launched this broadcast, and you were a Backstreet Boy, and you were like, I just want to get this out of my system before I have to go back to work. What was going on with that?
you know,
Tell me why.
We all cope in different ways, first of all. And mine was to green screen myself into boy band videos, and so it's fine, you know, everything's fine.
Y'all have to go follow Riots Are for Lovers on IG, and also follow JD Stokely on IG. Please, please, please. The content, oh my goodness, amazing. I don't know who I am anymore.
But I did want to is it possible, Stokely, to talk about the Create Well stuff? Because I think like in the midst of all of this, like I think a lot of times like the things that can help us get through moments like this that happen all the time of like are the things that sometimes get pushed back as far as our creative ways to like find healing. And so like, did you want to speak on the Create Well project?
Yeah, sure.
You're like, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Do you want to say what Create Well is first? I hate giving.
What is Create Well? Like, what are y'all creating well?
So Create Well is this really incredible grant this grant that we got that actually Bashizo, one of the founders, was a previous recipient of, and now works with other folks distributing the grant and helping the grant operate just different. Like Bashi has done a lot of work along with all the other folks that Create Well to create a grant that is actually invested in the health and well-being of an artist, and especially artists of color. Yeah, and so like first of all, they gift you money, so it's not taxable, and then the money they let you absolutely guide like how you want to do this project, and then the whole time like you can use the money to buy food, to buy healthcare for yourself, to do what you need that never gets allowed to be spent on other grants. And also as a team, they are invested in really supporting you and actually helping you follow through with whatever you envision for yourself. And they don't have that like outside pressure of like, oh, this is the reporting you have to do. This is like, no, like they really are invested in like supporting you and helping you. And both Stokely and I won a Create Well grant this past year. So
yeah.
Congratulations to you both. I've gotten denied, but I just realized what you were talking about when that's why I was like, oh, whatever. But I did have the opportunity to be on the review committee, and I will say that my growth in 2020 is totally different from the DiDi I was in 2017, and I wish them nothing but the best. Yes. Go ahead, Stokely.
No, I was gonna say try again, keep trying, you know. Yeah, but Create Well, I mean, I guess to answer your question, G, my Create Well grant is kind of looking at or revisiting this piece that I've been working on for about 5 years now. It's called Mouthpiece for now, but it's really this kind of series of performance rituals around the Black feminine mouth as a site of heartbreak and trauma and rage, but also of resilience. And so it's looking at a lot of my own like history of family trauma and thinking about heartbreak as both like lack of, you know, access to choice or, you know, about your body, over your body, you know what I mean? Or over your narrative. And also thinking a lot about like loneliness. So it's really funny to be thinking about this time in which we are alone, right? And while I haven't been able to, I can't make, you know, it's been hard to make work as a theater maker when I'm in my bedroom, because I don't have an audience, I don't have actors or other people to engage with me, but I've had really, really good one-on-one conversations. So right now, my artistic practice looks like getting on the phone with people and talking about grief and shame and heartbreak and bodies and being fat and being trans and queer. And I know, bodies, unbound. Who thought? Yeah, so it's been fun. I don't know. I guess it all kind of ties back together, huh? Like,
how do y'all navigate? So I feel like the art world is very very interesting, and I'm a fellow artist. How do y'all navigate being fat and queer and people of color, like, in this society? Well, did I think that wasn't even on the list? I just, when you said and fat, I was like, let's talk about it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't want to talk about being fat?
Genevieve?
No, I Stokely, what do you think? I gotta
yeah.
less with it.
Because I feel like a lot of times, especially amongst just our society in general, like, values thinness, right? And they assign it to healthiness and all this other shit, which is actually, as we all know, untrue. What my concern is that, like, also, I think about, am I cooking something? I have no idea what's going on. I think about there was a Heineken ad a while back in 2017. I wrote about it, right? And there was this supposition that this white kind of like militarized trans woman, right, like, could sit down and have a Heineken with this really bigoted white guy. I mean, any white guy, whatever, but it was, right? And then, like, all of a sudden he could understand after a conversation what it meant for her to be a trans woman, right? And it was so problematic because aesthetically speaking, she was extremely thin and extremely good looking, compared to society's, thoughts. And I'm just like thinking, I still can't get over that, because what would it look like if it were an undesirable queer trans person who was fat and, like, not just fitting in with societal standards of what beauty looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, how do we talk about? I mean, I think that, like, I'm still doing a lot of healing around my own fatness. I think, especially the ways that it intersects with my transness, like knowing that, when I talk about, like, the Black feminine mouth, when my idea of my femininity is usually through, like, my maleness or my, masculinity or, transness. But I know that people read my body as more woman because it is curvy or thing, so, like, those are some things that I'm working on, unlearning, unwinding, unbounding around my body and fatness. And I think just, like, also, like, I don't know, like, what does it mean to be someone who has experienced so much trauma and has a hard time living and existing in my body? And so I'm trying to find ways of really both seeing myself, being able to actually see myself and not feel shame around my own body, but also, like, be in it, feel it, and know that it's gonna feel different to be and feel in my body, and, like, try to undo a lot of shame around that, So one of the things that Create Well helped me do was pay a bunch of people to help me get top surgery and, like, take care of me. Like, a lot of my money, the first part of that money went to my care team, which felt, one, really good to take care of my community who was taking care of me by, like, paying for them to be there and, like, knowing that like, care is labor, right? But also it was, I don't know, when I think about, just having top surgery and being fat, and, like, the ways that, like, there was, I don't know, there was just so much. I feel like I shouldn't put all my business out here on Facebook like that, because I'm realizing that I haven't even thought about some of these things yet. But it's there, it's juicy, and I'm gonna get back to you.
I would love to reconnect with you at some point about that conversation then. So put that in the parking lot on the bike rack, please. Thank you.
For sure. Like, I have so many fucking thoughts. But I just feel like, no, like, I feel like being, well, first of all, like connected to my Create Well grant, it's actually work out of being a sexual abuse survivor and what it means to be queer Latina, and how we can't talk about it in general within our families. We're told, you know, that you keep it within the family, de eso no se habla, because like then you destroy the family, and then so there we don't talk about it. And then when you're queer, you don't talk about it because then that's blamed for your queerness, and then you just have all this shame around and not speaking about something. And then I figured out, like, I actually ate to make myself undesirable and what is considered desirable as a kid. Like, I found it very empowering to eat cake and to eat these sweets that people told me not to eat, because then I would become something that's undesirable, right? And it was actually something that protected me and helped me as a kid. And now as I got older, you start within the queer community, absolutely, like white, especially for butches too, like white, you know, androgynous looking butches are the shit apparently. And like, and if you, you know, if you've got breast, you're not butch. And if you've got, like, there's so much fucked up shit that you have to like deal with as far as what your body looks like.
Right.
And
don't get me
so
started.
all of that, oh my God, all of that wrapped up into like, you question every day, you wake up questioning every day, like who you are, who you feel like, and then how you read your body. And you can't even be, you can't feel like you're the right butch, you can't feel like you're the right anything when it comes to like how does non-binary play out, how does butch play out, how does all these things play out in the body you have. And so the project that I'm working on is working with other artists and working with other survivors in doing movement so that we can use our bodies as a space of healing and like own. We're not dancers and we don't have to be, but like, can we move and can we use our bodies as a way to like move this energy through and tell our own stories together, and in a way that owns like the shapes we are, and how like some of the coping we did do like fucking got us here, and like and how grateful we can be for the ways we figured out how to get ourselves where we are today, and whichever methods those were, and whether they serve us or not anymore is a good question. But like how like and that's the project that I'll be working on, and hopefully with other also Unbound folks coming in on it. But
I appreciate both of y'all's thoughts about being queer and fat, because you know, for a long time, like I loved Lutzi Sagu said, I'm not performing, not Lutzi, it was Yevgene. She said, I'm not performing femininity anymore, even though she's beautiful, she's a very feminine presenting person. And I thought about all the societal pressure on myself. Like, there are things that I like to do. Like, I love getting my nails done. And it's the reason why I named my podcast The Full Set, because I sit with my nail technician for 2.5 hours taking care of my basic needs, right? And I tell her all my business while I'm there once a month. But I also think about, you know, my ability to want to feel sexy or want to feel like I'm projecting what's inside of me, right? Even though society will look at me. I went outside just to go drop off food yesterday, and I had on like it was like a romper, whatever. My butt cheeks was out, but I didn't plan on getting out the car after I initially went in the car. And I was just gonna hand the food out the window. And my neighbors, I know that they were at the protest to open the state of New York back up, but my neighbors are super Republican, and they were looking at me like, you don't get to be a hoe on purpose, not in front of our kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just, for me, I feel like, yes, I have, I think I have 3 stomachs. Like, yeah, I just looked at one just now. And it's like, I can still be me, and I still feel awkward in being me because I'm told that like I owe everyone a flat stomach. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I just appreciate y'all sharing that.
Like this summer, I'm gonna live my best barbecue daddy life and fuck anyone who hits on.
Yes.
I'm really appreciative of this. I'm here for it all. Thank you. I know, Stokely, that you are from Philly and you're currently located in Boston.
Yeah, go ahead. What you gonna say?
No, I want to know what you was gonna say.
But I grew up between Philly and Boston. Yeah, so I claim Philly first. I really do. But I grew up also in Lower Mills, so between Milton and Mattapan. Like,
oh shit. Okay, we're just shouting out. Okay, here we go.
We're shouting out the demographics. Okay. So yeah. I only know Lower Mills as a trolley stop, but thank you for explaining it.
I was right by my house. Yeah.
I think about like how much BIPOC folks are cute. All the acronyms are literally like the first to like make sure we are protecting ourselves, and yet if you're claiming Philly first, do people consider you a Boston person? And then if so, how much does that contribute to what you're able to do and maneuver with when you're organizing with people outside of your collective?
Mm-hmm.
And Genevieve, are you originally from Boston?
I am not. So I'm from Hialeah 305. What's up?
What? My bestie live in Miami. Okay.
And then I lived in San Antonio in Texas for 10 years. So
you look like you lived in Texas. Yeah. Come on, Mexico lady. So like, what does that look like? Because I think of like, even myself, I transplanted to Albany, New York, because y'all live in Boston. You know, the rents are astronomical. That's my word for this week. Thank you. And I wanted to put rent in a coffer. I promised Nazara Strange I would use coffer at least 4 times this week during my podcast. So I wanted to put rent in a coffer, and I moved here. And I often feel like, even though I've been coming back and forth, like you, Stokely, I've been coming back and forth, and I'm like, I do my work here, and then I go back home, or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm still seen as an outsider. And I was like, if it was Oprah, though, y'all wouldn't be like, we don't need your help over. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is the outsider mentality about being someone who's like, we create these communities and we want to protect them or whatever? What do you think that that's about? And like, how can we move past it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Trying to sit with it. I mean, I guess the answer to like think about like what it means to be in Boston, making work, curating work here, but not necessarily always claiming it first. I think that I think that, you know, I've been thinking a lot about what it means to bring folks to Boston and to have Boston folks go other places. Like, I know as an artist that a city, it's almost like it doesn't respect you until you leave. You know what I mean? Like when I left Philly 3 years ago, I got so much work those first few months. People were like, oh, you're gone? Can we fly you out? Can we pay you? And I was living off of very, very little money, and I left because I couldn't find a job, right? So I think there's something really interesting about like, not feeling like hopefully not feeling like an outsider coming in and trying to, but really like a connector, trying to find ways of continuing to connect and support artists. And I think we've done that in all the shows we've done. In the first Unbound Bodies show, there were people from New York, from Philly, and from Boston who were represented. In the second show we did called Thrive, there was some Philly folks and Boston folks. And in Hot Bits, which I'm sure hopefully we'll talk about at some point.
I'm actually excited because I was like, let me go Google this. And I looked it up and I was like,
Hot Bits is a traveling annual porn film festival, and the Boston stop is all just QTBIPoC films. And so it's a traveling festival. It's already kind of built into the mandate of the festival that, you know, we're connecting artists from different cities. And I think that that's like really beautiful, right? Like it ends up building a really amazing network of QTBIPoC folks who are in communication with each other. Yeah, I don't know. Do you wanna say more on that question, G?
Yeah. I think it's really complicated, like everything we talk about. Like I don't think I've ever said, oh, something's very simple. Well, I guess there's simple. Anyway, it feels really complicated because it feels like when you work, when you move to somewhere, like coming from histories of migratory people, like migration and like, so when you have that, like, I think there's a natural understanding that people are going to work on things that were born here, that weren't, you know, like, and at the same time, there is, I think, something to learning how things, like how different communities do things when you first arrive somewhere.
Right.
And like, what does it mean to build relationships in a way that honors, like, historically, who are the people of color, who are the queer and trans people of color who have been working here, who have been
Right.
doing this here. And also, there are so many cultures that historically migrate. So like, what does it mean for, I think it's just complicated. What does it mean for people to build and work together at the same time, acknowledging the complicated truths of like, borders are a fucked up thing, and also who has been here historically is a real thing. So like, what does that mean?
Right. I appreciate y'all's vibe on that. I, you know, like there's no like right or wrong answer. I just, in my headspace, I'm like, let's hold that up, you know?
Yeah. I think Boston felt really hard to like, Boston in some ways felt like very established, and in other ways, the more years I've lived here and now having Unbound Bodies, like I didn't have Unbound Bodies anywhere else but here. So there is something really fucking beautiful that occurred here, and while also being really hard. And so like, and those two things feel really lovely together, you know, like.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, I know that from the explanation that the both of you have given me about the Unbound Bodies Collective, that it's about decolonizing. And I know that decolonize is a buzzword, all right? And we kind of want to make sure that it stay, like when we discuss it, that we stay true to its origins, and like, instead of like white folks having come up with the word, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we redefine it for ourselves? Fuck Merriam-Webster, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so what does it look like for us to decolonize our desires, right? Like, because we talk about Black joy, and we talk about Black magic, and we talk about, I don't know what Latinx folks talk about. Like, I wasn't raised culturally, like my last name is Delgado, and clearly my mother is half Mexican, but I wasn't raised Latinx. So, I mean, you know, what does it look like for folks that are Black and brown to address like why we're like in this society, and like really imagine the world in which we want to live? Like, how do we decolonize like the different levels, our romantic relationships? How do we decolonize our friendships with people? Like, I'm now looking at my friendships with romance in my eyes. Not that I want to fuck my friends, but I'm like, you know what? Let's treat each other the way we want to be treated. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we with our partners, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why can't we do that? Like, you know, so what does decolonizing on different levels look like for y'all?
Looking at me, G.
I think no, I mean, because I feel like you say really brilliant shit and you're like, I don't know, and then you're like, here's something brilliant. So like,
but I feel like that's like your whole thing. We always love each other as a collective. We're always like, I mean, I feel like that's like one step, right? Is like lifting each other up, lifting each other up. I mean, I think one amazing thing that we do as a collective that's really important to us in our gatherings is like gathering over food, right? And trying to gather and find ways of knowing each other and working together beyond just what can we produce, but what is the process of building community for us. You know, we had a really amazing moment as a collective, like, you know, maybe even a month ago, where we were like, we have to think about how we're in community with each other before we can start doing all this work that is really about like being more outward facing. And so I think maybe one part of how decolonizing our practices as a collective, and I think another like way to think about our work too is like healing work. We are doing the work of healing, you know, our own ancestral lineages, and also like the work of, you know, of our community. Like there's something really magical that happens when the five of us come together, and also when we hold space and there are, you know, let's say 100 QTBIPoC folks in Boston together. Like that's powerful. Yeah, but I think it's about like slowing down, not feeling this kind of capitalist like push to constantly produce work, but really think about like why it is that we've gathered together, why like what it is that brings us together, like what, you know, I don't even feel like we always know what we're working towards. We just know that it's something amazing, you know, and like brilliant, and it doesn't have to be presented. And especially as a theater person, I think that's been a huge kind of form of decolonizing my own practices, because theater tells you, even though I love about theater is the process, like the rehearsal, the being, but it tells you there's got to be a show, there's got to be a final thing. That's not what our work is really about.
That's why I like Afrofuturism, because there's no final destination. It's just, this is what it looks like, or this is how my imagination shows up here, like, you know. So
yeah.
Come on, Octavia Butler.
I feel like one of the practices, like as an organizer, when I came out, like I consider myself a culture organizer, and one of the things that came out of organizing, I was a union organizer for like 10 years almost, and it was just as constant.
Is that why the hat?
Yeah, I'm a very serious, non-theatrical person, and I think that one of the things that I really appreciate about organizing is my, you know, I didn't have to resort to theatrics. So I think, but being an organizer, it was like you're really taught to be like sacrificial, like you're so like for the communities and like so the community can live, you must die. And it was like you must.
I feel personally attacked by this relatable content.
You must like absolutely like constantly sacrifice yourself. And I think one of the things that I've learned through collective work, through Unbound Bodies, is this idea that like, oh, like for our communities to thrive, like we have to be able to be around and in a way that feels good to yourself. And it doesn't feel good if you go on a 7-month campaign and you don't take a day off, and you actually don't have health care, and you actually work for a nonprofit that pays you below the poverty wage, and you actually like,
so bad,
you know, you actually are micromanaged every fucking day when you show up to work, when you're talking about liberating people. So it's like, what are we doing? And I think in Unbound Bodies, one of the things is like really holding each other accountable to like, hey, hold up, like let's hold a second, like why are we doing this? And really asking ourselves over and over again, why are we doing this? What do we want to do? Also like giving ourselves permission to play around. Like I think as like I didn't even consider myself an artist, even though I can fucking create and I can make shit, and it's really and it's like even though I can
like outfit, I mean obviously, but
like we're actually like we're not allowed space to like fuck around as artists, as queer and trans artists of color. We're not allowed to fuck around, because that's not like, you have to be perfect and you have to be the best, and even when you're the best, they still don't fuck with you. So like the fact that we give ourselves like space to play and like to figure things out and mess things up and try things, it feels like that in itself is breaking practices of who we are told we have to be by colonial practices. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I have a question.
Oh,
can you pick me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, thank you. So
the one in the bralette, go.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to be modest today. So anyways, I was thinking, because I'm reading some of the comments, and first of all, can we just take a pause to like let people love on y'all real quick? Even though you didn't say yes, I'm gonna go ahead and say your silence was consent. Okay, thank you. That was problematic. Okay, so
Yes, do it.
Carmen Fonseca said everyone's lighting is flawless. Thank you. Okay. KD said that they were so excited that we got Stokely on here. Yes. What else is happening here? Jana Venturini says, thank you, JD, for speaking so freely. Adora Norfo said, I totally used food to shelter myself from abuse too. So hugs to you, G. Folks are joining in. And then Carmen said something that I kind of wanted to talk about. And then I'm glad the ancestors used Carmen to like pull it out of my ass, right? Carmen said, yes, call out these nonprofits. So Stokely, as someone who works for a nonprofit, like we're not asking you to speak on behalf of nonprofit industrialization complex all across the globe. What I'm saying is, let's just have a mitigated small aside for how we have healing modalities inside of the nonprofit industrialization complex, like in these nonprofits that we work for. And I'm saying it as a person who is just a tall, small Starbucks tall fraction famous or whatever, and I work at a nonprofit. And prior to this nonprofit, I worked at another nonprofit for 6 years. And prior to that, I worked for the Easter Seals of Massachusetts. I've worked for all the things like nonprofit. And I'm like, y'all are all fucking up. And I knew it before I had the language. And so how do we, most nonprofits address, you know, if folks who are tuning in and don't know, most nonprofits address a specific need within the community that needs to be filled or supported or uplifted. Most nonprofits don't get to the uplifting part, but we discuss like ways in which we can address systemic issues, even if we're not calling it systemic. We address poverty, homelessness, we address you know, art production, you know, all the things. What does it look like knowing what you know, knowing that Black queer femmes have written the Incite anthology and also the Revolution Will Not Be Funded? What does it, I'm writing an article, so we don't have to go there, but what does it look like when I get an email inadvertently about whether or not should I be at the meeting when my position is potentially going to be discussed to be eliminated? Like, you know, what does all of this mean for a social service agency, that these agencies that we work for and that we throw our passion into? Don't get me started. I can't even believe that I feel like I wanted to talk about this.
Me?
Tell us, Stokely.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about my nonprofit because I love them and they pay me. So really clear. But
That's
but I think that, you know, what I will say is, I mean, I've worked in nonprofits, especially in like the theater world, in which people have literally been like, you know, you have to have your opening night smile on. Why aren't you smiling? What, like when I ask you to take out the trash or do whatever medial, you know, ridiculous task I'm making you do, because why the fuck, I don't know, like, ooh, actually, let's not talk about that nonprofit either, because I think what nonprofits can learn about this current moment is like what it means to rest and slow down. It's like hard because, you know, nonprofits are usually so underfunded and so under-resourced, some of them. And somehow like really you find people, like whether they're artists or, you know, cultural organizers, like you know, like people who care so passionately about these communities, and then they can really just wear these people out and wear them down. But the thing is, like, when you don't rest, you can't dream, right? So, you know, these nonprofits are finding people who I think have like some sort of spark of creativity, who are bringing something, who are making connections in their own communities, and in some ways really dogging them out, you know, and burning them out, and then kicking them out, you know, and it just kind of creates this like really fucked up cycle. I wonder if nonprofits could imagine themselves like could set a date and say like, okay, within 5 years, we're gonna like spend all of our grant funding. We're going to work towards a mission that we truly, truly believe in, and like make sure that like our work is done, like how that would change the kind of work that they're doing, how that would change the ways that they're treating their employees, their community, like how that would change like what service even means, like less from like a missionary kind of, we're going to come in and solve the problems of your community, and more like, you know, we're here because we are of the community, you know what I mean?
I just got so excited because I've literally told the place that I work at, not just the place I work at, a lot of nonprofits, I've been like, y'all's mission statements is basically what you get all your funding off of. And if your mission statement says we are the voice of the community and you're a white person in charge, most likely the community you're helping isn't largely by white, like, you know what I'm saying? And so you can't be the voice of the community. You can amplify the narratives. Oh, leave that light on. That's great. No, turn the light back on. That's amazing. Y'all see I poured Define today. So
Yeah,
like,
I see it.
Thank you. Thank you. I felt seen just now. So yeah, I just, I feel like a lot of times, because our need and desire to be competitive with one another and be like, look at what our collective and our organization is doing, like that sometimes we lose sight of what the true mission is. And it's the thing, it's your art, it's the people we serve, it's the communities we're building, right? The communities we're a part of, right? The communities we're fortifying. And so I'm so grateful to be in this space with y'all, just to be able to talk about all these things.
I think
feel about nonprofits, boo.
I could fill several fucking books, let me tell you, because like I have so many goddamn feelings. But I think specifically, even like to start, even for this moment, like I think so many nonprofits in this moment right now with Corona, COVID-19, however you want to call the Rona,
that
Rona, like I'm like just the basic idea that how you treat like your employees, like if you're a nonprofit, how you treat the people that you're working with should be your first priority. Like this idea that it's totally lost, it's totally white supremacy, and it's totally all these things, that this idea like Stokely was talking about, that you're going in doing mission work, that the people who work for you are very different than the people who are at the receiving end of your mission statement. And that's so like wrong. And a lot of these nonprofits actually starting to hire more people of color, they're starting to hire more queer and trans people of color, like, and then at the end of the day, like they don't treat their staff in a way that meets the minimal kind of understanding of what it means to then serve the people that they're supposed to be serving. And so it's like they don't see the importance of like how you treat each other within the nonprofit is absolutely going to speak to the work you are doing. So if you are not paying people well, if you are not having if your meetings are anti-Black, guess what? Your services are anti-Black. Like if you're absolutely doing like all these kinds of like fucked up hiring practices, then your services are fucked up. And there's no way around it. Like there's no way around it. And so there's such like, that's one of the first steps a nonprofit can take, is how are we treating our staff? And then from there, your work will improve. Like absolutely your work will improve. And like, that's just a basic thing. I mean, when I was a union organizer, I worked for Unite here, and I was expected to go into to work for free. I was expected to volunteer and to get hired, like it was called salting. So I would get hired as a housekeeper and I would organize the hotel, and they would expect me to work for free outside of that. So I would work 60, 70-hour weeks with just what I was making as a housekeeper. Why? Because I spoke Spanish, I was Latina, I connected with the workers. And so they would tell me, oh, because you're so good at your job, we can't give you a full-time position. You have to stay doing what you're doing, because I'm so good at my job. And it was like, and I bought that shit, right? Because I thought,
I hate them for you. Okay, go ahead.
But you buy into it because you think this is what it means to organize in your community. This is what it means to love your community. You can you sacrifice yourself and you sacrifice your well-being, and that's how you love and organize. And I'm here to say, if there's any, I wish an elder would have told me that is not how you do it. And I'm telling anyone that is younger than my young age, that's not how you do it. It's not how you do it.
Did you see my young age face?
And it's just not how you do it. So
I wanted to ask you, in lieu of that conversation, because literally we can bash nonprofits all day with the exception of Stokely's. So like in lieu of that conversation, what does a spiritual practice look like for either of you? Knowing that there's so much pain that we ourselves as individuals go through, and then there's a collective pain, you know, in our multitude of communities that we're a part of. What does a spiritual practice look like for you?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. I'm always someone who identifies as being very spiritual and not very religious, but at the same time, I couldn't name you a spiritual practice that I do. I feel like I'm trying to find ways of being more to slow down, to be more intentional in the ways that I'm communicating and taking care of myself, communicating my own needs, like standing up for myself. You know, I think that's like the biggest spiritual practice for me. I am trying to find ways of being, more mindful and like being in better relationship with myself. Trying to make art, journal, do those things. And there are other people around me who have stronger spiritual.
You journal?
I try when I got time.
I'm a mirror. I'm calling it out like I see it. I'm like, fam, are you journaling for real though? Because I have 5 journals that are unfilled. Okay.
And they're half empty. Yeah. But I mean, there are people in my life who I go to for spiritual guidance, right? Like, you know, one of my best friends is a hoodoo practitioner. My mother practices Ifa. Like there are things that I feel really drawn to and connected to that inform the ways that I think about being with myself. And, you know, but I wouldn't say that they're my practice. And also, like, you know, like theater and art is maybe that's too cheesy, but theater and art is a practice, right? Like, and I think together, like with Unbound Bodies Collective, like especially as a collective who's like the one thing that really does bring us together with all of our multidisciplinary practices is healing. And so that feels like whenever we gather together and create work or think through things, that feels like a very spiritual gathering and one that is rooted in practice, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm so blessed to even hear this. Thank you. And go ahead. G, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think over time, like getting to know, spending more time with myself in thought, and also like creating rituals for myself and listening to my own self. Like I think learning to affirm my instincts has been a healing spiritual practice. Learning to affirm where, like, as much as I can understand, like a combination of where I come from, and then there's a lot of unknown, but like listening to what my body is drawn to, what my mind is drawn to when I create a ritual for myself has been really helpful. And then also like my bestie, my homie in Unbound Bodies, and my best friend Bashizo, like is a practitioner and like has a practice for themselves, and being guided through them and just being open to expanding that has also led me to feel a lot more spiritual. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I think about the word decolonizing, right? And I'm decolonizing my spiritual practice. For a very long time, my mom just wanted to be like, I saw this movie one time with John Leguizamo, and it was called Where God Puts His Shoes, or Where God Rests His Shoes. And it was actually a really good movie. But I feel like that described my mother, that my mother was always searching for the place where God was resting their shoes, you know? And so we have been literally every religion since I can remember, since I was 5. Like, we've been Jehovah's Witness. My mother was Baptist. I was christened Roman Catholic. As you know, my mother is half Mexican, so I was christened Roman Catholic. But literally, we were Muslim for a month. I mean, let's just talk. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, so you understand where I'm coming from. And then, like, you know, because I was constantly searching for a place to feed my soul, because I knew it was an important part of my body, that I think I've been baptized. You know, I feel like I'm on my Yeezy shit. I've been baptized at least 7 or 8 times. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it still didn't feel like I had a connection to like this religion that I was serving. And so within the past 2 years, I've been reaching out and doing my research, you know, on African traditional religions, because it's important to me. I think about what ATRs look like across the diaspora, right? And so for me, if I could tell you that I had a spiritual practice, it would be a lie because like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing in order to ground myself. I know what it looks like when I do feel the most grounded. I know that speaking with my ancestors, like I just admitted to my best friend, I was like, girl, I just cleaned off my altar. Like, you know what I'm saying? And when things are going wrong in my life, I can speak for myself. It's because I haven't really sat with my ancestors. You know, I know people whose parents or grandparents or, you know, other blood family members have passed away. And they're like, I just wish that they were here. And I'm like, they are. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're waiting for you. Come and knock on our door. You know, and so I just feel like, you know, for me, that's a spiritual practice. But I also acknowledge that I still buy into Christianity a little bit, meaning that the only times I really seek out my spiritual practice is as if something is going wrong. And, you know, I think not a lot of people realize how much white supremacy takes a toll on us, because having a spiritual practice is work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we are the benefactors of that work. And so my friend Tamala tells me all the time, you know, you say you don't have time to do this, but I'm really going to push back and say, if you needed to move your car, a brand new car, say you just got a Bentley, and you was like, oh, but I need to move it to California and I gotta go. It's gotta be here in 4 days or whatever. She was like, you could do it, but you gotta put fucking gas in the car. And then you're like, you talking about you don't have the time to stop at the gas station. You have to stop at the gas station. You have to keep stopping at the gas station. Yo, Tamala, shout out to Tamala. So I just, you know, I wanted to just briefly touch upon the spiritual practice as saying that it's something that is labor, and it's really difficult in a white supremacist, patriarchal, heterosexual society that we live in. And like, yeah, I think it helps with healing. So I feel like that segues into my next question, my next and last question, which is, what does healing look like for QTBIPoC? And for those who don't know what QTBIPoC is.
I just wanted to throw in that I think we all have our barbecue daddy ancestor, and we should find them somehow. Where we have our barbecue daddy ancestor. I feel
you're my favorite barbecue daddy.
Okay, that's all I wanted to share in addition. So
yeah. Wait, I'm like, what was the question again? It was like, what is healing for QTBIPoC folk?
Yeah, like what, like how do we, you know, like a lot of folks talk about like, oh, all Black lives matter. But the reason why I'm ensuring that these conversations are lifted up is because I feel like, you know, like we have such social capital, but only amongst ourselves, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so like, what does healing look like in the larger scheme of Black Lives Mattering?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I think it's a hard one for me because I don't, you know, and to answer the question about like, what does QTBIPoC mean? It's like queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And with the being very intentional about kind of naming Black and Indigenous folk, because often those are two groups of folks who get lost in POC. Sometimes POC becomes a blanket term that when you might just mean Black and Indigenous, right? So like naming those folks in our communities. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because the thing is, like, our healing all looks different, right? Like, so I'm not sure what healing looks like. Healing in my family looks like, as a QTBIPoC person who is of Jamaican and Black American ancestry, looks really different, even on the different sides of my family, right? Like, depending on which grandmother I was in the kitchen with, you know what I mean? So, but I think that, like, in the context of the work that we're doing at Unbound Bodies, it's really about slowing down, about finding ways to rest and dream and reimagine together. It's about finding power in play and in desire for ourselves, for our, you know, sexualities, our sensualities, our bodies. It's about, supporting folks in our community who need it, but also like reaching out and building support, not just when people need it, you know, like, but like not when we're just in moments of crisis, but continuing to really build strong foundations for us. It's like demanding to be seen when we are constantly erased from our neighborhoods, and being seen in our joy, not just in our grief. I think, you know, mattering or healing in a world in which all Black lives matter also means like recognizing that Blackness matters when we are sad, when we are angry, when we are joyful, when we are like, fuck this, I'm rageful and excited, or, you know, like not respectable in this, I don't know. So it's like all those things. Yeah, it's big. And it's also like small and local, and, you know, there's so much in that. Yeah. You sure you don't want to say anything else, Butch Dia, about our healing as QTBIPoC?
I don't know.
Did you just lick your eyebrow?
No. Oh my God. What a skill that would have been. Oh my God. No, ma'am. But my eyebrows do look good. I'm not gonna lie.
No, you look like you got that quarantine special, my nigga. Like, I don't know what to do right now.
I think something that was something that has been really powerful. Gloria Anzaldúa wrote "Wild Tongues Cannot Be Tamed," and something that was really powerful for me in my healing process was to own the fact that to acknowledge that I refuse to stay quiet about things, even if in those moments that I feel crazy, even in those moments that people make me like want me to feel crazy about what I'm saying, and I could be the only one saying it. I think something that's been really powerful in my healing is like more so coming to terms with that, and to speaking my truth. And like I think there's something to understanding the toll that, especially being in nonprofits and in being in like familial traumatic situations, the toll of being the person who's gonna say something every time, acknowledging that. And I think DiDi, you and I have talked about that. And
I'm like, do I want to be the person that's always that person? Like, having the conversation with my family about Egypt's pronouns, and like then my grandmother, who I love dearly, is like, don't do that to that girl. I'm like,
yeah. And but it takes a toll, and then at the same time, like, it's part of who I am, and it's part of like, and if I can in some way break these cycles, like I think the thing that has driven me to continue to commit to therapy and continue to like commit to doing work is a commitment to break the cycles that have been handed to me as much as I can. And like I'm deeply 100, it doesn't matter who is around me or what the situation, I am deeply committed to breaking cycles that cause harm as much as I can, like hand off to other folks after me. So
thank you. I have a question about two of y'all's shows, your productions, your art installations. One of them is The Stoop, and the other one is Hot Bits, which I'm really excited about because I haven't yet learned how to minimize my notifications when I'm watching porn myself. And so oftentimes people interrupt me coitus, and it's just problematic all around. So if I could just get more information about that, that's cool. But my question before that is, what was your first, and we had talked about this sort of off camera, but what was your first introduction to queerness via the media?
I feel like I'm being set up here. My introduction to queerness, I mean, in a healthy way, I feel like my mom, it was really like going through the cable box and like seeing porn by accident. Like that was really
that B-side cable,
you know. But I think it was it's interesting. I feel like my real introduction to queerness was through a lot of Black feminist literature that was on my mom's bookshelf, but that probably wouldn't call itself queer or inherently queer, right? Like reading Sula and feeling things and being like, what is this relationship between these two women, right? That feels queer. But then it was also like, there's a lot of, I feel like when I came out at 14, I feel like I was given a lot of like white, cis, gay men stuff, to read, to watch, and feeling a lot like, yeah, I think that's definitely been part of my whole decolonial practice too, around my own queerness, is like trying to detach myself from like this very white, cis, gay understanding of what it means to be queer. Yeah. Let me stop there. I was talking about Will and Grace earlier, okay, Facebook.
Come on, Will and Grace.
I thought it was funny.
Karen!
Karen, her drunk ass Karen.
I had never considered until we actually started talking about this conversation, but I'm gonna share a little bit about my life. My mom's best friend and my first and only white person ever in my mom's life was a woman named Janet, and she's got her own organizing career in Boston, and she was a lesbian. And I remember being gifted, I don't know, now I still don't remember if my mom was gifted this copy or it was mine, but I read Our Bodies, Ourselves from cover to cover. And I feel like I masturbated several times to all the stories of like women like talking about their sexual experiences. And it wasn't even like they were talking about their sexual experiences. They were just talking about getting a vaginal pap smear. Like, and I was just like, this is me. But anyways, I can't believe I said that on national television. But there's that. And I remember being very intrigued by the stories. There was a chapter in the book called In America, They Call Us Dykes. And I'll never forget that because I've always felt, even though I present as feminine, I've always felt extremely masculine. And that chapter in the book really, really affirmed for me, even though I didn't know the language and I didn't know what any of that shit meant. I was like, I identify with these white women. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there weren't very many Black women in this book, even though, first edition, second edition, it was very much about women's health in general. Didn't have much about trans folks, I will admit, but it really, like, this is the shit I was reading at 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that was like my introduction into queer content and being like, okay, I think I like girls. And then yes, at age 12, it was the B side of the cable box, and it was like all these porn channels, and I was like, I'm going to emulate this, and I did the summer of 1996.
Damn.
What about you, G?
I remember my grandmother's queer ass hairdresser, and I remember Walter Mercado on TV, and everybody the way they talked about him. And then I remember like Ellen DeGeneres and like Rosie O'Donnell also. And I remember, okay, I will share a deep secret to Stokely, since you talked about Will and Grace. I had, just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. I had a Melissa Etheridge CD and a Natalie Merchant CD, and it was in my underwear drawer. And my mom found it. I hid it because I knew it was wrong. I hid it, and my mom found it, and my mom was like, "What is this? How dare you?" And I was like, you know, I don't even, it's not even mine. I don't know how I got there. And it's like this whole fight. And I was a tiny child listening to Lilith Fair music, apparently, but I was a tiny child. And yes, but you know, we all have our will and graces. You know.
Did anyone come to your window is what I really want to know.
I went to several windows. Nobody came to my window.
This bitch said Natalie Merchant, I'm done. Okay.
I went to visit several of my best friends, and you know.
Oh my goodness, y'all are wild. So tell me about the stoop and this hot bits. Like, what are y'all talking about? My lady bits? Like, what's happening? Like,
ooh, all right. I'll talk about hot bits if you could talk about the stoop, G. So hot bits is a national collective, and also an annual touring queer porn, film, performance, visual art festival that happens in a bunch of different cities. But there are 3 anchor cities right now. So it was started in Philly about, I think this is the 4th anniversary. So the anchor cities are Philly, Baltimore, and Boston. We jumped in, this is gonna be our 3rd year, I guess. And we made the decision as Unbound Bodies that we would be prioritizing just QTBIPoC films. So we only show QTBIPoC work. Last year we did a workshop series that was fire. We also have all QTBIPoC performers and vendors. And yeah, it's been this like really beautiful, amazing community building event where we just come together, watch porn.
if you need an actress for any of these items, please let me know. Thank you.
We definitely have call submissions every year, so look out for that. So the stoop is a project that came out of one of our collective members. Simone's family used to live in the South End, and she was speaking to the reality of like a hair shop going out of business that she remembers being around. And it was like her wanting to speak to gentrification that was happening. And also we have another collective member who was born and raised in Boston too. And
gentrification happens in the South End.
What? Yeah, it's a wild. DiDi, we don't want to scare people off, okay? So stop this political talk. So we wanted to create a space that talked about like how do we take back, and not only take back, but it was also like an acknowledgement for the folks in the collective. I think so. Everyone in the collective besides me is Black, and so the other 4 folks in the collective wanted to focus on Black joy and wanted to understand how do we speak to the understanding of like it's not just about speaking to something that's not here anymore. It was like, how can we inject memory into space? Like land has memories, like, and how do we re-inject memory into space? And so we went to the steps in downtown Crossing, and we took over the steps that lead to nowhere, like all that fucked up, horrible I don't know who the architects are that redid Downtown Crossing, but it's tacky. And it was just like, we took over those steps, and we recreated a scene of like what is Black joy, and folks came in and they were tending to each other's hair. There was scalp greasing. There was also story collecting that was happening. Folks at Palace, who does the Weiss Cube, was collecting stories from folks sharing their history, like their stories of being on the stoop and what it was like for them. And then you just had like folks coming in and out of the space. You had elders that would come in and like ask what's going on, and like then they got to like relive moments of like what a stoop is like. And it's just like some of the it was an event that was really incredible because we conjured something there, and it was like a meeting of past, present, and the possibilities of different futures. So
yeah. And also
I have to go ahead, but I'm gonna ask my question afterwards. Go ahead.
Beautiful like Afro pick like planters. So it was like we were tending to each other's hair on the stairs, but also tending to each other through, like you said, story collecting, but also like through plants. There was all this beautiful like vivaciousness happening there as well. And also this beautiful braid like installation piece that kind of cascaded down the stairs. I don't know if you mentioned that she was also really instrumental in building, helping us build. And people were there like literally braiding in beads and seeds and stories into this large, altar we were creating together.
Yeah.
I love that the fried chicken came out. I'm jealous.
I know, I'm hungry.
I just woke up from a nap before I we connected for like 20 minutes before this thing, and I still hadn't eaten. And if it wasn't for Ada, but God, thanks Ada. So my question is, that was supposed to be my last question, but my question to you is, for a mixed collective, and I say that word very loosely. So you said all of the collective is Black with the exception of G. And so what does it look like for non-Black folks, because this has been a theme on my page for the past 2 days. What does it look like for non-Black folks to go ahead and step back? Like, yes, you're an oppressed person, right? From what I understand, you are Mexican and Cuban descent, right? What does it look like for non-Black people of color to step back and say, yes, I have my oppression, but Black folks are actually more marginalized than I am, and I can be in community without getting feeling like I'm overstepped. Like I can just see that there's a level here, not the oppression Olympics, but what does it look like? And also, Stokely, I would ask, what does it look like organizing with non-Black people of color?
Should I go first? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things that's been really amazing for me working in not like in POC spaces, not just Black POC spaces, but is to think about Blackness. I think about my own Blackness as something that is not monolithic, so it's actually really important to me to think about the ways that my Blackness is both informed by like Caribbean ancestry and American ancestry, and that like my family always says it's the difference of like a stop, but also like it could be just like my Jamaican ancestors could have been from Georgia the day before, you know what I mean? Like, but there's now this like weird divide, and I think, yeah, there are lots of other kind of issues that that aren't just like that we might not necessarily think of as Black issues, but are also Black issues that I feel like are really important to find ways of like speaking to, like, one important part about my family story is that, my father was deported, right? And so like, what does that look like for me to think about the ways that I'm showing up for immigrants in my POC community, or like folks who like understand that experience. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I think that's, I'm gonna be real when I don't necessarily know. You know, if I'm always learning. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I want to learn more about as we continue to organize in mixed POC spaces are how we can start really thinking about, especially since so much of our work is about space and land, and like we talk about BIPOC community, like how can we better organize with Indigenous folks from here, you know, whose land we are on, while still acknowledging that, like, you know, stolen labor and stolen land are working together. And like, that's another kind of thing about colonization that we have to work through. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I think we're still learning too. I think we're still figuring it out. And I think we're still figuring out who, as a collective, like, are the people that we gravitate to and why, you know? Yeah. What would you say, G, around like, yeah.
I think for me, I just always try to remember to speak from my own experience and to understand the work that I have to be committed to doing every day, and like understanding that part of my experience is a colonial, racist, privileged experience because of how anti-Blackness plays out. And so I think it's just being committed to constantly every day undoing that, and being willing to know that that means my own, like, starting with my own self, and in how I relate to the people I work closely with, to people I love in the collective. There's moments where spaces are not for me, and that needs to be 100% okay. And there are moments where and it is a learning thing, because I am a result of colonialism, and I am a result of racism, and like, and so that is in me, and I have to undo it, and I have to learn, and I make mistakes, but that's all I have to say about it. But
I just want to say thank you both so much. I feel like this conversation in itself was healing. It's part of our healing journey, right? There's a question that I leave with all my guests, and I feel like it's kind of like my branding a little bit, because as most people may or may not know, I can't believe I said most people may or may not know. You made me more fried chicken. You're amazing. You're amazing.
Yes, you're amazing.
Okay, so that's real. Is that I leave my guests with two questions. It's a one question, but I don't care. It's two-pronged. And the question is there anything that you feel like I could have asked you and you're surprised I didn't? Or you feel like, hey, we never talked about that thing, right? And two, who would you like to see on the show?
Ooh. Oh shit.
Go ahead, G.
First of all, I just want to say y'all dimples is popping, okay?
Damn.
G, you take this one.
Actually, you're gonna have someone on the show that I'd want to see on the show, which is Moya. I think Moya's brilliant, and I would have suggested Moya, but that's already happening. So, yeah.
Just a shameless plug. It's this Monday, April 27th, 7:30 p.m. Moya Bailey, Dr. Moya Bailey.
I would honestly, I would probably gas up all my friends. And Stokely's already on here. I would be like Bashi, Kamaria, Simone. They should all be on here, and so I would just bring my friends. So
yeah. I really love the work of Dean Rollins, who is, I don't know if they're on the show, but they should be. Yeah, I also like to gas up my friends. So I'm like, well,
Oh, Palace in the whitest cube. Yeah.
Palace should be on
And
here.
y'all link me to these individuals because I feel like what is going to happen is this is not sustainable. I'm tired as hell. I work my 9 to 5 and then Egypt is coming back tomorrow. It's just going to be a very interesting experience having these things every day. So me and Egypt are going to have to knock out at 6:30. And so it's going to be very interesting. But in the future, I feel like I'm doing like this as a quarantine talk, right? And in the future, what I'd like to do is once a week, but I'm just building up the momentum for how we're going to set the stage. And so I appreciate y'all joining me for this time. I hope for those of you who just joined, Stokely and G's PayPal, their Venmos are the pinned comment. Holla at a play when you see him in the street. I mean, do it respectfully. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna take, we were able to raise some money today. People did not pay me for the full set. They just sent me money because I demanded respect on my name. So I'll be sending you both $50. But I really encourage people. I feel like I learned so much today. I would encourage folks to go ahead and drop some coins in y'all's Venmo. I mean, if you have a PayPal, back to the live after it's posted and drop that too, because you know people don't know how to function if they don't have more than one choice. So there's that. So is there anything else that y'all want to share with us today?
Just follow us on Instagram.
Yes.
On Facebook, we've got Unbound Bodies on there. And thank you, DiDi, so much.
Of course.
So much. This was really fun.
I'm sorry, y'all was nervous. I feel like every single time I get on the phone with somebody, they be like, "Oh my God, why did I even agree to this?" And then like when we talk, it's just all love. It's all love. And so I appreciate both of y'all for joining me and concluding another amazing episode of The Full Set. I hope that y'all have a good night and y'all stay sucker and corona free. Okay.
Always. All right.
Peace, y'all.
Bye.